something keeps pulling at you. You have stepped in, you have rearranged your life. You are carrying more than you expected to carry. Dementia is present. You're alert, you're filling in the gaps. You're trying to stabilize what feels unstable. You might think that the problem is your transportation. You think it may be employment. You think if you can just regain your footing, everything else would calm down. It feels like a logistics problem. But sometimes the real issue is not the logistics. Sometimes the real issue is that the responsibility has increased and no one has clearly defined who now holds the authority to decide. Hey, Christian Care Companion. Welcome back to Dementia Caregiver Support for Christians, the podcast for Bible-believing Christians trying to carry responsibility faithfully without losing clarity. In this episode, you are going to hear a real conversation with an adult child who uprooted his life to help and began to realize that instability was not coming from lack of effort. It was coming from an undefined authority. Listen for the moment when the real decision surfaces. And if you recognize that tension in your own situation, a caregiving threshold review can help you identify where your clarity is next needed. Check out the link in the show notes or go to thinkdifferentdementia.com. Hello, Will. How are you today, sir?
I'm fine, thank you.
I'm used to interruptions. I kind of go with the flow. But
Okay,
I'm excited to meet you. Thank you for being here. You're a
thank you.
first-time person here today, correct?
That's right.
Awesome. So to start us off, what has been the hardest for you right now in your caregiving?
I had to pick up everything in my life and only be with my parents. My father has a dementia diagnosis and it's getting worse. I don't have employment. I have no car. They live in a 55 senior community where everything is 8.5 miles away. My mother has anxiety.
Okay.
She's 90, she's 88.
Okay.
And just to be able to be on this call, I had to leave the house and come out into the community.
Well, that's certainly a lot. Thank you for sharing. So if your caregiving felt easier for you in 6 months from now, what would be different?
On a practical level, if I had a car and if I had at work, would that make things better? Because there have been times when they've had episodes where they needed to go to the emergency room, and because I was here, that wasn't an issue. Some I'm a little conflicted.
Okay. So may I so you were thinking that if you had a car and a job, it would make things easier. Was
I
that
don't know.
correct?
That's a good question.
Can
Um,
I tease a little bit out
sure.
by asking you some context questions?
hmm
So your folks are 90 and 88, and you mentioned you picked up everything and moved to your parents. You moved to your parents obviously for a reason. Was that because they needed help or because things had kind of gone a little sideways with employment and it was
Well,
helping?
no, I was working where I was.
Okay.
It wasn't a great job, but I had
Okay.
employment. I had a place to stay. My
So
mother had asked, basically she asked me to come because she was getting stressed out.
okay. So your mom was getting stressed out taking care of your dad. You moved in with
hmm
your parents to help your mom.
Right.
Okay.
My father
You,
thinks he doesn't need help.
of course he doesn't. Do they have a car?
Yes, and I was driving them around for a while. My father has gotten very territorial. He doesn't want me touching his car. He accused me of putting a battery in the car. Every little dent and scratch he sees, he blames, you know.
Okay.
So yeah. So I have not driven in several months.
Okay. Does your dad still drive?
Can't. I mean, he has a license, but because of his medical situation, he
Okay.
can't.
What
He
about your
should.
mom?
She does.
Okay, she does. Should she?
Should she? That's a
Yes.
good question. She's a safe
Okay.
driver.
How much care does your mom give your dad? Does your mom need help as well? Or does just
Great.
your dad need help?
Does he help? Uh, he he's very low energy, and he has these manic outbursts at times when he gets confused and knows he's getting confused. He'll rage out. I said he'll have these episodes of being where will just sleep a lot.
Okay.
Very.
But right now, your mom does not need any help.
I think she does.
You're not bathing her, dressing her, things like that.
Oh no. She can do all that stuff herself,
Okay. But
and he can
she,
do that. He can do that stuff for himself too. He can be left alone for short periods of time, but not overnight.
okay. When you moved in to help your mom,
Hmm.
did you and your mom have a conversation about what that would look like? Like you gave
No.
up your whole entire, you uprooted, gave up your job,
Hmm.
everything to move in there to help provide care for her, for them.
Hmm. Hmm.
D so that's one question, and then the second question is, even though you don't have a job right now, are your parents in a financial position to, help you out so that you could potentially get a car?
Uh, no, but I can manage that myself.
Okay. So, would it be okay if I kinda shared with you a few things that came up,
Hmm.
related to your particular situation?
Hmm.
Okay. So you mentioned that you moved closer to be with your parents and they live in a 55 and over community, which means it's pretty isolated and everything is far away.
Right.
And your dad, from what I can tell, based on what you said, is getting into what I call the middle bucket of his dementia journey. He is still
Hmm.
able to get dressed, he's still able to do those things, but likely the quality of his self-care is starting to go away. We're needing to remind him more and more about doing things. He believes he doesn't need as much assistance as what he truly does.
Hmm.
And the car and using the car has caused conflict in his mind because you shouldn't be driving their car. Um, and he's pretty accusatory, so there's some some of that going on. It sounds like your mom is still pretty independent. She's
Right.
88 years old, but doesn't seem to have any thinking difficulty. It's just she's 88 years old and is starting to slow down.
Right.
One of the things that might be helpful to look at or consider or talk through is establishing a formal caregiver's contract. The person who's in the top right quadrant has high involvement and high authority. That is your mom, right?
Right.
You are high involvement and low authority,
Hmm.
which means you cannot really make the decisions. Your mom's the one that makes the decisions, which oftentimes for the person who is highly involved and doesn't have the authority to make the decisions can be very frustrating, right?
Right.
So the next question is, of the two siblings, are you the decision maker for your parents if something happens, or is your sibling?
I don't know.
Okay. So those are the most important things to start with. You need to gently, not like me, more like you, gently ask your mom, do they have a healthcare power of attorney? Do they have a durable power of attorney for financial decisions? Do they have a will? And then who are the decision makers now? For example, oftentimes spouses, your dad's, your mom's, your dad's. Who's the next person? Who's the person underneath?
Right.
Knowing this is going to make your journey so much easier, because if something happens to your mom, if she just passes away overnight, then you and your sibling need to know who is the person that has the legal authority to make decisions for your dad.
Right.
You need to start with the legal first. That's the very first domino. You need to know what is in play, because if your parents do not have a will, a power of attorney, and a healthcare power of attorney, if they die tomorrow, your life and your siblings' life just got very complicated. You need eyes on the documents, because if it's your sibling and you're highly involved but have no decision-making authority, because then your role is influence. If they do not have these 3 documents in place, it's not negotiable. It has to be done, whether they feel like it needs to be done or not. It's just going to make your life super hard. Talk to your siblings, see if they know. So, what is one action step that you can take this next week?
Talk to my sibling and see if he can find out for some of this stuff from them.
Okay, that's good. Will, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to the podcast. What became clear in this episode was this: the instability was not about transportation. It isn't about his employment. It was about responsibility without having defined authority. When these two things are misaligned, frustration grows and clarity disappears. If you recognized your own situation in this conversation, you are not facing a logistics problem. You're facing a decision problem. Do not leave it undefined. Schedule a caregiving threshold review at thinkdifferentdementia.com and identify what must be decided next, because responsibility without authority will always feel unstable.